Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chicago PD just referenced its pilot in Season 12, and we got goosebumps. Chicago PD continues to deliver the goods in Season 12. The police drama not only benefited from the recent One Chicago crossover, but a focused, character-driven approach that has yielded some of the best episodes in recent memory. It's been fun to see the veteran characters change over time and come to the realization of what's important to them. We have watched Adam Ruzek, Patrick John Pfluger, and Kim Burgess, Marina Squirciati get engaged, and Kevin Atwater, Leroyce Hawkins, become the change he wants to see in his community. The episode Street Jesus, however, presented us with an unexpected throwback to the mindset Hank Voight, Jason Begg, had in the pilot. The character largely took a backseat to Atwater throughout the episode, but he delivered arguably the most notable line of dialogue. Atwater spent most of Street Jesus trying to hide info from his commanding officer. He didn't want to implicate his friend, Hype, in a local murder, so he refrained from mentioning Hype to Voight. This backfired, of course. Atwater eventually came clean out of necessity, and Voight took it in stride. He admitted he was disappointed in Atwater for hiding the truth, but reminded him that making tough calls should fall to him. "That's not how things work around here. You tell me the truth so I can lie for you," Voight explained. This exchange, while powerful on its own, takes on additional meaning when you realize Voight said the exact same thing during Chicago PD's pilot. He explained that people told him the truth so that he could be the one to lie for them. Bringing this morally ambiguous line back was not on our 2025 bingo board. It's fascinating to hear Season 12 Voight take this stance. The character was introduced as a menace in many regards. He tried to take out beloved Chicago Fire character Matt Casey, Jesse Spencer, for crying out loud. He's softened over the years, but he has always been able to call upon this killer edge when needed. Voight's willingness to bend and break the rules is what drove Jay Halstead, Jesse Lee Soffer, away in Season 9. The character was forced to partake in a blackmail scheme that saved Voight as well as his wife at the time, Haley Upton, Tracy Spiridakos. He did it, but he flipped Voight's infamous line about lying for other people against him. Then he left. We're curious to see whether traces of the old Voight will pop up during Season 12, or whether the exchange with Atwater was merely meant to be a nod to the pilot for die-hard fans. Either way, we dug it. 12 seasons, 12 years of gritty cases, intense chases, and the kind of emotional storytelling that makes you forget you're watching a TV show. But nothing hits quite like a well-placed reference to where it all began. Chicago PD just delivered a callback to its very first episode, and fans everywhere felt the weight of history settle onto their shoulders. The moment wasn't just a wink at longtime viewers, it was a gut punch. A reminder of how far intelligence has come and how much they've lost along the way. A full-circle moment in Season 12. It started like any other case. The team was deep in an investigation, voices overlapping in the bullpen, the usual flurry of intel being thrown onto the whiteboard. But then Voight said something, a phrase simple enough to go unnoticed by a casual viewer. "Make sure we get the whole picture before we move. No loose ends." For anyone who's been with Chicago PD since day one, those words carried a heavy weight. They were the exact words Voight had spoken in the very first episode, back when intelligence was an unpolished, volatile unit still finding its rhythm. Back when Antonio was his right-hand man, Erin Lindsay was still trying to prove herself, and Jay Halstead was the rookie with a chip on his shoulder. The phrase alone was enough to send chills down fans' spines, but the writers weren't done with us yet. The emotional gut punch. A few scenes later, Haley Upton found herself retracing the steps of a case from years ago, one eerily similar to the events of the pilot. The scene was a nearly perfect recreation of the moment that set Chicago PD in motion. A suspect cornered, the tension thick in the air, and a split-second decision that changed everything. Only this time it was different. In the pilot, it was Halstead in that position, his gun drawn, trying to decide whether to pull the trigger. But in Season 12, it was Upton, and just before she made her call, she whispered, almost to herself, full circle. If fans weren't already covered in goosebumps, they were now. It was a moment of undeniable weight, not just because of the callback, but because of who wasn't there. Halstead, the man who once stood in that same spot, had left. Antonio was gone. Lindsay was a distant memory. The intelligence unit had evolved, fractured, rebuilt itself, but the ghosts of the past still lingered. Voight's reflection. A nod to the past. Later, as the case wrapped, Voight stood alone in his office, staring at a framed photo on his desk. Though the camera angle didn't give us a full view, longtime fans recognized it immediately. It was an old picture of the original intelligence team. A younger Voight, Antonio Dawson, Lindsay, Halstead, Ruzek, Burgess. The camera lingered, giving us just enough time to feel the history in that one image. Voight's expression was unreadable, but his body language said everything. A heavy sigh, a slow nod, a moment of silent respect for everything and everyone that had led them here. Then, as if mirroring the pilot once again, he turned off the office light and walked out, leaving the past behind as he stepped into whatever came next. Why this reference hits hard? Fans who've stuck with Chicago PD for 12 seasons know that the show has never been afraid to change. Characters come and go, storylines evolve, and the unit reshapes itself time and time again. But at its core, the show has always been about the same thing: loyalty, justice, and the weight of the choices that cops make every single day. Referencing the pilot wasn't just a nostalgia play, it was a statement. It was the show acknowledging its own legacy, reminding us that everything happening now is built on the foundation laid in those first episodes. For fans who remember the early seasons, the callback felt like a love letter. A subtle but powerful way of saying, we remember. We haven't forgotten where we came from. And honestly, we're not sure we'll ever recover from this one. Chicago PD has always been a show that knows how to tug at emotions, but Season 12 just delivered a moment so powerful, so full of history, that fans everywhere got chills. The latest episode brought us back to where it all started, an emotional nod to the pilot episode that longtime viewers never saw coming. It wasn't just a throwaway line or a blink and you miss it Easter egg. No, this was a full circle moment, a reminder of how much the characters and the show itself have evolved over the years. A callback 12 years in the making. The scene was simple yet gut-wrenching. It was set in the intelligence unit's familiar bullpen, but something about it felt different, almost ghostly. The lighting was dimmer, the air heavier. As the camera panned over the desks, we caught a glimpse of an old photograph pinned to the board. It was a group shot of the original intelligence team from Season 1. Voight stood in the center, just as he had back then, but the faces around him told the story of time's relentless march forward. Some were still there. Others were long gone, either transferred, lost in battle, or taken by the unforgiving streets of Chicago. Then came the moment that sent shivers down our spines. A new recruit was being brought in for questioning, and Voight leaned forward, resting his hands on the table just like he had in the very first episode. The framing was identical to his interrogation of Detective Antonio Dawson in the pilot. The lines eerily similar. You think you know how this works? You don't? Not yet. But you will. That's when it hit us. This was a direct reference to the moment Voight established himself as the force to be reckoned with in Chicago law enforcement. The exact words he had spoken to Dawson all those years ago, now being used on someone new. The weight of the callback was undeniable. Voight wasn't just talking to the recruit, he was talking to us, the audience. He was reminding us how far the intelligence unit had come, how much the streets had hardened them, and how, despite all the change, some things remained the same.